Well, hello, whoever, wherever, whenever you are, whyever you're here, however you got here. Thank you for showing up. I'm Denise Matteau, and I just feel like talking a little bit. Um, yeah, I've been under the weather for a while. Found a bunch of mold in one of I had a portfolio full of artwork that was works on paper, old pastels and watercolors. And I didn't realize that it was sitting over there near the bookcase. It was growing black mold inside. We had a lot of humidity lately, and that just aggravated it and made me very sick. Finally got rid of it, getting better. But that's not why we're here. I don't know how long I'll be able to go before I'm still getting coughing fits from it. So I'll go as long as I can. There's stuff that's going on out in the YouTube world, not just YouTube. I'm lazy though. I spend most of my time it's in YouTube or X. And the what has been a kind of a continuous little drama circle around Pizzagate, and entangled with all kinds of arguments about anti-Semitism and white supremacy and all this other, these big trigger words. A lot of it has been treated as personal feuds between people. But I'm always the one who says, that guy may be a creep, but there's people around him that are even worse. Then he's like the front of something. And then, oh, Denise, you see stuff like that everywhere. It's like, yeah, maybe it is a tendency on my part for some reason, but it is what it is. And if it's why the Lord put me here to be the one who points that out, well, I got to do what I got to do. So there's this Gabe Hoffman thing. Gabe Hoffman is a Jewish militant, and he's also, as an individual, he's a hedge fund manager. He calls his hedge fund company. This is where some of the individual stuff gets kind of funny. He calls it Exploitation something or other. That's what he has several companies, but that's the one that he was most active with when he started attacking me. Now, I'm not a millionaire. I don't put money in hedge funds. I don't do any of that stuff. And the way he got hold of me, got me on his radar, was that I was too friendly with a musician, a composer that he was attacking. The composer and Hoffman were involved in a personal name-calling feud. And everybody was treating it as two drama queens going at it and cheering from one side or the other. There were other people on the side, though. There was a group up in Indiana, a married couple in Mishawaka, Jesse Davis and Paula, also known as Pavana Davis. They were running a hate bait channel to collect people to attack one of Gabe Hoffman's targets. Now, as I said, Gabe Hoffman, by the way, the reason I laugh about Exploitation refers to a small hawk, what some people call a chicken hawk. I'm leaving that alone. But he named his company after that. And this feud between him and Schoenberger, I shouldn't have named Schoenberger. I'm sorry, but you know who he is. It's not important who he is. Okay, because he gets involved in a lot of troll fights and all this other stuff. And lately he's been pretty quiet, and I hope he stays quiet because basically he doesn't need to be messing around. He's an excellent composer. And Hoffman baited him into a fight using the word pedophile, but also by accusing him anytime he's attached to anybody in even the mildest, most friendly way. He gets accused of stuff. And he had the experience of, because he is a Hollywood, not really Hollywood, but he's a California guy. He grew up there. He grew up among Hollywood people. His father was a psychiatrist who had among his clients some Hollywood people, and he grew up with very highfalutin characters at his parents' dinner table. He also grew up as a musical savant, autistic, on the spectrum. That's why Hoffman was able to bait him the way he did. He accused him of actually killing a person who is known to have committed suicide, although there's a great deal of conspiracy, suspicion, etc. around this guy, Isaac Kappy, because Isaac Kappy was also baited by Hoffman's crew. That's what I'm going to refer to the people that I associate with Gabe Hoffman, is his crew. And it's a general word. I'm just using it for lack of something else to say. But this guy, Isaac Kappy, was an actor who in many ways wasn't too bright. And it's common knowledge that Hollywood is a pedophile nest. That people have known about that since the days of Shirley Temple. And it's only gotten worse and worse and worse because our general culture has allowed it to get worse and worse. So Isaac Kappy decided he was going to be the one. He was being convinced by people around Gabe Hoffman that he was going to be the one to expose it all. Big hero. And he started talking about it, about the problem of pedophilia in Hollywood. And Thomas Schoenberger, being the guy he was with natural connections to people, he was always recommending, oh, you should go to this person for an interview. In fact, I've got people contacting me now in DMs, giving me suggestions about how to reach a larger audience and so on. And that's wonderful. But I'm not trying to reach a larger audience. I'm not seeking to build a channel. And I'm not saying that out of any falsity. It's a simple fact. I'm in my 70s. This is my priority, is to see some justice before I die. And I'll say my piece, and if it falls on 2 sets of ears or 2,000 sets of ears, so be it. But I do see what goes on. People who understand how the system works, they see someone who has a message and they say, hey, this is how you can get that message out. So that's how Schoenberger was doing. He told Isaac Kappy, listen, there's this guy, Nathan Stoltman, who's doing interviews, and people that are listening to Stoltman are interested in what you have to say, this topic you're talking about. So why don't you go on an interview with him? And so that's all, that is the only thing that Schoenberger did with Kappy. They had some conversations. He said, hey, go talk to this guy. And Kappy did. And indeed, that did kick off a big deal for Isaac Kappy. Now, Isaac Kappy was a professional actor. So he was seeking to build something for himself. And he ran with it. And he ended up suicided, Now, a suspicious suicide can be a homicide, because if you engineer somebody, if you push somebody to the point of suicide, that's murder. But it's very, very difficult for anyone to ever prove that's what's going on. And that's why this organization around Gabe Hoffman is actually a professional serial killing organization. And they draw people in who have no clue what they're being pulled into. And they groom them. They either groom them to be a martyr victim, like Isaac Kappy, who then they exploit. Now they can roll off what he was saying. He's not around to correct anybody who wants to change it. And he never did get any hard evidence out to do any good. So he's the perfect exploitable martyr figure. Hoffman, not only was he running this weird little hedge fund, which the last time I looked at it, it had like zero. You can look up hedge funds in these financial portfolio websites, and it was listed as having zero clients. And the funny thing is, Hoffman tried to claim that I tore his hedge fund. I caused people to not want to invest with him because I criticized him for suing my friend Thomas Schoenberger. Schoenberger, as I say, he's on the spectrum, but he's very well connected in terms of just social friendship, and people exploit him because he's on the spectrum. But at the same time, when you have that kind of savant level Asperger's, which is genius level IQ connected to not always too bright about what people are up to around you, easily, gullible, in other words. When you have that combination, sometimes the genius part kicks in and you realize you've been gullible and you see the facts for what they are. And you can't be controlled because anyone who's exploiting a savant never knows when the savant is going to catch on and rebel. Because Aspies we're not controllable. We march to our own beat. Anyway, so Hoffman was exploiting Kappy. Then he began to exploit the Kappy case to attack Schoenberger. A lot of people thought Schoenberger was an easy target because of his tendency to get drawn and be baited. One of the aspects of a lot of people, some people, is that they confuse rules. If you have when you're playing a game, there's a set of rules that goes with playing a game. But when you're in real life, you're not playing by the same rules. But this is a big problem in the internet today with a lot of young people who grow up playing these internet games. They don't always understand that game rules do not apply to real life. And this even goes for older adults who should know better. You can't know what you're not prepared to know, okay? So Schoenberger was applying gamer rules to Hoffman, but Hoffman knew that he could flip it and apply courtroom lawsuit rules to Schoenberger. So what Hoffman did was start claiming that Schoenberger actually killed Isaac Kappy, making absurd claims. And I saw some of these stuff. And the way Hoffman did it was through his network, a very large network. I mentioned this Indiana couple, the Davises, that ran the Hate Bait channel. They're only one part of his network. When Hoffman would target somebody, these trolls, and right now a very active one is this sad case. I really feel sorry for her. A geriatric former porn actress who's trying to reinvent herself as a journalist named Terry Joyce. She's really beating the Hoffman drum because as a Hollywood producer, he can get gullible people like her, and she is gullible, to think that they're going to build a career with what they're doing. And then off they go. That's why I'm talking now, because they've been dragging my name into this. so I have to speak up. But the continuous attacks on Schoenberger seem absurd if you look at it at the personal level. Everyone's trying to turn him into an evil, just some kind of comic book villain of some kind. It's crazy. But it has to do with Hoffman's network, which is mainly an American Jewish network that is connected to, we all know, the Hollywood mafia tends to be the ethnic Jewish mafia. American ethnic. Now, this is something I had to learn the difference between, because there are as many different Jewish ethnicities as there are among Catholics and other Christians, and even among the Muslims for that matter. I mean, look at how the Shiites and Sunnis fight with each other. Excuse me. I may have to do this in 2 parts. So Hoffman, excuse me. I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, we're back. Where was I? So Hoffman was exploiting, so Hoffman is somebody who positioned himself as a Hollywood producer in the expose the pedophiles circle. People are now beginning to try that idiot female former porn actress is one that's trying to paint him as a hero. Let me explain exactly what he did, and you can look it up. I know I get people angry because I don't post a lot of stuff. I tell people to look it up. Well, I'm not going to go into details of why I don't. I have limited resources and limited energy. And I know there are people out there that know how to do this, and I'm always willing in DMs to help them find the sources they need. I don't have all the sources. I know where the sources are in many cases, and that's why I tell people, go in there and look and let them find them. Because this isn't a one-person battle. We all have to fight this battle together with whatever strength we have. Anyway, so Hoffman positioned himself as an anti-pedophile producer by putting money into an anti-pedophile documentary, which would have made a big splash at the Cannes Film Festival. I forget exactly which year, but it was in the early 2000s. It would have been huge. Who torpedoed it? Its own executive producer, Gabe Hoffman. What Gabe Hoffman did just before it went over to Cannes Film Festival, what he did was he sued the director. I think her name was Amy Berg. He sued her for allegedly not publicizing the film enough. It is not the director's job to publicize a film. You have a publicity crew. That's their job. The director is the director. So Gabe Hoffman attacked that woman, destroyed her career, or tried to destroy her career, by making a ridiculous accusation, bringing a lawsuit against her. He threatened several actors and by actors, I don't mean they were acting roles. They were interviewing actors out of Hollywood who could speak about personal experience to expose the pedophile rings. He sued at least one of them, and I think possibly more. Threatened with lawsuits, carried some lawsuits all the way through to silence them. Now, every single place that's going to show a film, including Cannes Film Festival, when they realize that the executive producer is suing his own people, and is likely to sue anybody who walks in front of his face, they are not going to promote that film. That is how Gabe Hoffman set himself up as a fake anti-pedophile hero and started his career. But a few people either just didn't care what he was doing, didn't notice what he was doing, or they saw what he was doing and kind of went through it. I'm sorry, a stray dog just walked up to my screen door, and it looks like a dog with a lot of puppies because she's got some milk hanging there. Oh well, someone will find her. Anyway, so Hoffman set himself up this way. Now, for a while, he didn't get away with it because everyone was talking about the lawsuits. I was talking about how he was using lawsuits. At first, people were only talking about whether or not he himself was a pedophile, which I don't know. I don't know, and I don't care. He's a gay Jewish militant, and I say militant, I mean it. He actually tried to recruit people to form a more aggressive organization than the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which is pretty aggressive on its own against anyone who's not Jewish. It's very Judeo-centric bigotry. Hold on a second. Anyway, I think he actually has. I'm going to have to look it up and see what he's doing. But he's got these organizations that he wants to go after people as individuals. Not just celebrities and go after them publicly to criticize them, but people like me who got nothing to do with any of this crap. Except, I have spoken up about a tragedy inside my own family. I'm Catholic, and we've had to deal with, everyone knows the Catholic Church has had to deal with the pedophile problem. It's not limited to any particular denomination. Excuse me again. Anyway, so he's not just a Jewish guy. He uses the anti-Semitism label because it's a weapon, and it still works in a lot of places, although it is losing it's a sword that's losing its edge because it's been overused and misused. And people like me have gone from the naive anti-Semitism of all Jews are bad to really trying to figure out what's really going on here. Because we've had to face these people. I faced them in my own community when they came into our schools and insisted that we stop all our Christian celebrations. When they attacked our towns, our ability to have Christian celebrations in our towns. And anyone who spoke up saying, hey, you're attacking our culture, but proclaiming your own culture in the process at the same time. Why not just proclaim your own culture and leave us alone? So there's that level of fight. But then when you start to look at what's really going on, you see the individuals. Then you start looking at the mafia level. And as a Catholic, we know our mafias, okay? The Catholic Church in America is the most publicly known mafia-style group, okay? Because the mafia is not the church. The church is not the mafia. But you got the ethnic base. You got the Italian mafia, the Irish mafia. Every group has its own. That includes the Jews. And Hollywood has always been the headquarters, the real jewel in the Jewish mafia crown. So all this stuff about pedophilia, it was going on against the Catholic Church as an investigation of the priest networks with the bishops hiding the priests. It wasn't a celebrity type of thing, but it was going on in the Jewish world as being connected to Hollywood performance actors. And a lot of the actors and actresses were not Jewish, but all of the controlling producers, or a lot of them, were Jewish. And they were using pedophilia to gatekeep and control and exploit their stables of actors and actresses, their celebrities. So while all this is going on, Gabe Hoffman positioned himself to be declared a pedo fighter. Showed himself to be quite the opposite because he torpedoed his own documentary. And the whole thing about the documentary, nobody was doing competing documentaries while it was in production, because they all had faith that this was going to be the one. This is going to do it for us. So he basically sucked all the wind out of the room, all of the oxygen out of the room, put it in that tank, and then blew that tank up. In the process, he had a problem because Schoenberger's accidental appearance as a networker kind of screwed things up, because Schoenberger could not really be part of a plan because he's who he is. So Hoffman started a personal feud. He baited Schoenberger into an argument, accused Schoenberger, made ridiculous accusations that a normal person who was not on the spectrum, not an Asperger's, would have laughed, because if someone accuses you of killing somebody, that it's absurd. I mean, if somebody accused me of shooting Charlie Kirk, I wouldn't get into a fight with that person. I would recognize that anybody who listened to that person for 2 minutes would realize he's an idiot. But Schoenberger got into a fight with him over it. Schoenberger felt that he had to prove himself. And that gave Hoffman the ability to do the name calling thing. That's where the game playing rules that I spoke about a little while ago, that's where they kick in. In game playing, if somebody makes a move against you, you have the right to make a move back, and you have the right to knock them off the board, because you're playing a game. In real life, if somebody defames you, you have the right to defend yourself. But part of the element of defamation is the credibility of the defamation. So if somebody makes a totally absurd accusation, you don't really have the right to try to destroy that person, other than to point out that this person's got a mental issue or something. Point out the defense that obviously you could not have done that thing, and then let it go. But Schoenberger got pulled into a name-calling match. Hoffman then also at the same time set up these bait channels, calling people out of the woodwork to get into a Me Too mob attack. And that's where the game players come in. Game players like to choose teams, and they like to be on teams. And Hoffman collects people who don't know the difference between playing a game in a chat room and attacking a person in real life. So Hoffman set this stuff up. And the thing against Schoenberger included a lawsuit that Hoffman set up, in which he accused Schoenberger of calling him a name. I think it was in a tweet, a text. It was in writing. It was in a text argument that Hoffman accused Schoenberger of calling Hoffman a pedophile. And the game playing rule was, well, he attacked me first, so I had the right to attack him. But that's not the courtroom rule. The courtroom rule is if you call someone a pedophile, you better, number one, you better have proof that he is, in fact, a pedophile. And number two, you have to have a reason for it. You know, there has to be a protection. You're protecting children, specific to kids, maybe, or whatever. But and you have to do it. You know, if you have proof that someone's a pedophile, you also have to go through the authorities, because just walking around saying you can prove someone's a pedophile, that doesn't do anything. If you really have that proof, you have an obligation to ask the police to open a case. See, those are courtroom rules, but they're not gameplay rules. Gameplay rules are just name calling. But Hoffman knows how to use gameplay rules to pull people into the courtroom. And what he did with Schoenberger was not just a personal, I'm going to beat this guy down, but he inserted a clause into his lawsuit that if he had won, and he didn't, he was forced to drop it, but if he had won that lawsuit, he would have gained the rights to all of Schoenberger's classical, instrumental, musical composings, which are a large body of... Schoenberger's in his 60s now. He has a large body of work. Most internet people in these troll circles are not aware of it because they're not into classical music. But he does have a very large following around the world. He's known in those circles. And some of that music provides a pretty good living. He's a professional. If Hoffman had won his case, his anti-everybody who's not Jewish hate group and all of his stuff would have gained the right to seize control of any artist doing anything, even though it was totally unrelated to the argument that was the excuse for the lawsuit. Now, one of the reasons why this has come to light is that there are some people, they pop up here and there in different places, and I just got contacted recently by two of them. I was on an interview with one who calls himself I Hypocrite. First time I ever met that guy. Interesting guy. He interviewed me for about 10 or 15 minutes about why Hoffman had sent me a letter demanding that I publicly... It was a legal lawsuit threat that contained a demand that I perform a public self-humiliation ritual in a video. It was laughable. And Hoffman thought I was going to get into a fight. He was baiting me to get into a fight with him over something stupid. But he had his lawyer sign this letter. So I said, well, screw you, Hoffman. I'm not going after you. I'm going after your damn lawyer. I'm going to get him disbarred. And I almost did. The only reason I couldn't get the guy disbarred is that it was in Florida. And Florida has crazy... Well, I think all the states do this. The Bar Association is really meant for one lawyer to complain about another lawyer. Civilians really don't get much to say in those things. So when I noticed that I had to be a lawyer to actually get him disbarred, I simply sent a copy of the letter to that lawyer's superiors in his law firm, because he was like the junior partner in a giant firm. And he got booted. That whole case got booted. Hoffman tried to hire a different lawyer who at first took his case, but then very quickly removed herself from it. And his case got dropped because he was getting caught in criminal lawsuit. I don't know what they call it, vexatious litigation, whatever. Anyway, if it had gone any further, he'd have ended up facing charges. So he dropped it. But this is all coming out because recently, and I'm going to do another video going into a different side of this background. Okay, I'm doing a series of videos right now to try to catch people up on the deeper background. And I suggest you follow this guy, Hypocrite. I mean, I don't really agree with a lot of the stuff that gets said, and people now are going to associate me with all kinds of people. I don't care. This is media. It's public. That porn actress is associating people. She's associating me with a website I never heard of until I heard her saying I was part of it. And the reason she's saying I'm part of it is that somebody in this website posted the humiliation letter that Hoffman had sent, and saying, and I guess they said something like, "Oh my God, look, he even goes after old ladies," and they showed the letter. And I'll put a link in the description to it, to the letter. I mean, not to that website, because I'm not involved with any of these websites. I don't have a big internet presence. I come into YouTube and X. Basically, I'm only using YouTube and X. That's it. I'm not out there to build an influencer universe. And I'm grateful that people are starting to pay attention to what I've had to say, but let the traffic go to the guys who are actually trying to build channels. This guy, Hypocrite, is doing good. This other guy, his name is, in X, he calls himself Trav LeBlanc. He's the one who called my attention to the fact that people were starting to talk about me, because he apparently, in his own research on Hoffman, because Hoffman's fight with Schomburger is not a single deal. Hoffman, like I say, he sued half the people involved in that anti-pedo film in order to shut it down, while at the same time claiming that he's the one who produced it. And now he has this porn actress who, by the way, she works with the Davises, and she worked with an actual company. You can look it up. I'm not spoon feeding links and screen shares because I got my own reasons for not to. If you're not intelligent enough to know how to do a basic search, to find a registered business like the Barely Legal Film Company, whose actors all have their resumes out there showing they don't actually show what they did, because, but they show their background for their professional resumes. It's all out there. This porn actress, former ex-porn actress, Terry Joyce, was actually a casting agent for Barely Legal. Barely Legal Film Company is called Barely Legal because they specialize in films made on the actors' 18th birthdays, which means the people making the film have to be grooming somebody who's under 18 to be ready to perform in a film on their birthday. It's logical. That's all it is logic. And that's one of Hoffman's main allies. And the Davises, for their part, ran a teen portfolio service, putting teenagers in touch with people who also are heavily involved with porn. Pavana Davis herself has a business. I think she still has it. She did have it anyway. And that's easily found. Fetish photography. Poop fetish photography. Okay? It's disgusting. And like I say, Hoffman called his own hedge company Exploitation. Now, see, this is where I'm going to just give you, I'm almost up to 40 minutes, so I've got to stop. But I'm going to give you a little preview of where we're going to go. We're going to go into the satanic panic and the spiritual side of this, because there are things that the true believer, activist, warlock level, serious Satan worshipers do. Just like as a Catholic, in certain situations, you're going to see me do that. It's in my hardwired in me as a Catholic, okay? There are certain things a Christian will do or refuse to do. Okay. If you're a Satanist, there's a thing where you have to signal the evil nature of what you're doing, because a person doesn't go to hell if they are innocently fooled into doing something bad. In order to end up in hell, which is, you know, I mean, you can be an atheist and say there's no such thing. Okay, fine. If you're a Christian who believes in hell, you know it's a place you do not want to go. If you're a Satanist and believe in hell, that's your heaven. That's where you want to go, and you want to bring people there. People don't go to hell by accident. They only go to hell if at some level they know what they're getting involved with. That's why the Satanists always put somewhere in their profile, somewhere in activity, they admit what they're up to. They do it with a joke. They do it with a little symbol. They do it with a little name. But they do it. And then they proceed on their mission, which is pure evil. And in Hoffman's case, it's definitely directed at protecting, exploiting, and in different ways participating with the pedophile community. That does not mean he's a pedophile himself. I have no clue. I don't care. Evil is evil is evil. Pedophilia is one variety of extreme evil. I've got to go. Thank you for listening this far. I'm going to post this in my X page. If you put Denise Matteau, Matteau, in my X, I mean, not in my X, but in X, you should find it. It's the same avatar as I have in my YouTube channel. Beware of troll copy channels. There are some, I don't bother with them. I mean, if I do see one pop up, X is pretty good about removing impersonators, but I'm just letting you know. You can find me that way. And you will also see a lot of the troll crap, and most of it comes out of Hoffman's crew. I don't care. I'm in here for the full fight for justice. And I'm going to come back with some more videos. So DM me in Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Notice how safe they were. They didn't go down when Amazon went down. So it's a good place to rely on. Okay, thank you. Denise Matteau, over and out.